I've been actively following the Helldivers 2 situation over the last couple days, kinda just with my fingers crossed, hoping that Sony will change their mind about the awful decision that's tanking the game. But unfortunately, just like my height, it hasn't changed, and now it looks like it's probably too late anyway. Even if you started putting like a rabbit's foot up your butthole for some good luck, it looks like it won't matter, because in the words of a great man, this is democracy manifest. The game has been removed from 177 different regions from Steam. So this ship is already sailed here. For those that don't know what's going on, Helldivers 2 is one of the most successful games of 2024, a game that I was personally so excited by and happy with that I made a whole video dedicated to singing its praises and just gushing grannies over it, about how rare it is for a game, especially a game like Helldivers 2, which is a live service game, and that title, live service, has a more negative connotation than the title Reddit mod. And yet Helldivers 2 went on to buck every dogshit trend that the gaming industry has been shoving down people's throats and found immense success. A massive, passionate community and a huge player base. It's an incredible game and they do everything right with it in terms of how they deliver new content. It's just so good. It was positioned to just be an extremely popular game that had a very strong community forever, as long as they kept up this momentum. And yet, a couple days ago, from out of nowhere, they were able to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, thanks to Sony, mainly. There was an announcement that all PC players that were playing Helldivers 2 through Steam would now need to link their Steam account to a PSN account in order to continue to have access to the game. Now, this isn't unusual, and a lot of people were quick to point out, like, gamers are just spoiled, they're making a big deal out of nothing, this is a mountain out of a molehill, what a bunch of fucking barnacles here, this is all horseradish, why are people making an issue out of it? And while they're right that it's easy to link an account and it's not unusual, it's more common than the cold. If you play a game on Steam, sometimes you'll be forced to link to like a Microsoft account or, God forbid, a Ubisoft account. Like, this does happen a lot, but what they're not understanding about this case in particular is when Helldivers 2 launched, you did not have to do that. Now, we're going to get into the nitty-gritty because there were statements on the official page where you should link a PSN account, but they made it optional. Like, you didn't have to, you weren't forced to, which led to plenty of people from a ton of different regions buying Helldivers 2 who do not have access to the PlayStation Network, thus they can't link their Steam account to a PSN account, meaning they won't be able to play this game going forward. And now we're reaching the point where we're at today where it's been removed from 177 different regions on Steam. So it's a massive fucking mess, and it is a headache. Like, there's no reason to tiptoe around this. No one likes having to link their account to other services. It just creates a lot more hoops to jump through. Yes, it's not a huge time investment, but it is a fucking nuisance. Especially Sony. Like, they're claiming that the reason behind this is for security. I mean, what a load of hooey. Security, Sony's infrastructure is like the least secure on the planet. I'd rather link my account to a known crypto scammer than link it to the Sony network. They get hacked every couple of years like clockwork. I wouldn't be surprised if hackers started holding their own E3 to make their upcoming announcements on the next Sony hack. It is so frequent. So it's not exactly the most secure place to hold your information. You're probably better off just writing down all your information on a piece of paper, folding it into a paper airplane, and throwing it out the window. It's probably safer that way. Like, it's a ridiculous claim. I think the reason that they want everyone to link their PSN account is because it looks a lot better on their bottom line earnings report when they, like, go through all of their player counts and whatever. I think that's probably the reason behind it. Of course, I'm not 100% sure why, but they seem to really be adamant about needing these accounts linked, which has completely ruined the reputation of Helldivers 2 because it's made everyone mad. So it's been review bombed to shit. That got straight banished to the Shadow Realm. It used to have mostly positive reviews, like literally one of the video game industry's darlings. Now it's got negative reviews thanks to this change, and a lot of people are going to lose access to the game that they paid for, which is a problem. Now, there is refunds that are being offered, which a lot of people are taking, and it's just been a disaster for a game that is truly special. Helldivers 2 is such a good game, and it's now been completely tainted forever because of this decision from Sony. A fucking classic Sony L here. So let's dive into a bit more of the weeds. I actually think Ludwig did a great job covering the broad strokes of this, so I'm going to play a couple clips from his video.
To the defense of Helldivers 2, this was on their Steam page since their launch 3 months ago. This is actually my screenshot. It says right here, requires third-party account. PlayStation Network supports linking to Steam account. However, they did not enforce it. And if you go to the FAQ on PlayStation's own website, they would say signing into PSN is optional when playing a PlayStation game on PC. They have since changed this FAQ when they made this update today, and that's why people are not happy. Here's another page where it says, do I need a PSN account to play PlayStation games on PC? No, you do not, currently. Now, they have changed this policy, and they're now saying you got to do it with certain games, including Helldivers 2, which has millions and millions of players.
So as you can see, it was clearly posted that you would need a PlayStation account to play the game. However, it wasn't a rule that they were enforcing, and if you did any level of digging on your own, you'd find that on their own official FAQs for Sony, they said that signing into it is optional. Thus, you would start to connect dots in your noodle oh, okay. So I downloaded Helldivers 2 on Steam. I'm not being forced to make a PSN account, thus this must be one of those games where it's optional to make one. I think I'll avoid doing that. I think I'll go ahead and press skip, which is something you can do or could do with Helldivers 2. So there'd be no reason for players to think that down the line they would change their stance on this. All of a sudden, hey, now you need to sign in here, Buster. You've been breaking the rules behind our back. Because they've made it clear that it is optional in cases. And it seemed like Helldivers 2 was one of those cases, which it was. But what they ended up saying is that there was a grace period. So you could initially gain access to Helldivers 2 without a PSN account, but it was only for a temporary period of time to guinea pig it, to get you hooked on it. And then you'd have to, get your comeuppance here by signing into PSN, which I think is extremely misleading if that really is the case. If that was the plan from the beginning, if they had always planned to just get a huge influx of players and then just fucking bait and switch them with the PSN requirement, I think that is almost criminal. Because again, there are so many regions that had access to Steam that could download Helldivers 2 that cannot link with a PSN account, thus they're going to lose access to the game they paid for. That is fucked up. That is some super scummy shit if that really is the case, if that's what Sony's long-term plan was. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if this is just one of those things where okay, we need more juice in our PSN numbers. Let's go ahead and force the massive Helldivers community to link with us. It'll be great for our numbers here. That's probably the most likely answer, but still, it is a problem. It's not so much, again, the concept of needing to link an account from Steam to another service. That's been here prevalent for many, many years. It's the fact that so many people could do it without that step, and now they're retroactively adding that requirement, and that makes it impossible for a lot of players to play the game going forward. That is the main issue here. It's fucking stupid, and it is a decision that has completely ruined the reputation of Helldivers 2, and it makes me super sad to see that, because this is a great, great game that has now just been run through the mud here because of Sony's greed.
These are the current available countries where you can make a PlayStation account. There's a lot of users who play this game who cannot make a PlayStation account, thus cannot play the game legally. Now you might think, well, how about you just make up an account? But if you look at PlayStation's own rules, they say, well, hey, you have to make an account in the country that you reside in. That's the rule here. And if you don't, we may request identifying documents to prove that you were in that country. And if we suspect that you are not following our terms of service, we might remove or compromise your account. We might ban it altogether. You might lose access to be able to play the game that you paid for altogether. So basically, the only way for a lot of the user base to play the game is if they break the rules that Sony laid out, which is a little bit fucking dumb to me.
It's a little bit fucking dumb to everyone outside of the Sony stupid tank where they're in there just actually huffing moron potions. It's crazy how they wouldn't see this as an issue. So, as Ludwig states, there is a list of every country that can have a PSN account, and there's a lot of places absent from that list that have access to Steam, have a lot of players for Helldivers 2, and will not be able to make this PSN account. The only way around it is to make a fraudulent PlayStation account, flub it a bit, which breaks Sony's rules, and you could lose your account because of that. So they have no options except to stop playing the game that they love. It's a problem, and it's an entirely avoidable one that didn't need to happen in the first place. Sony could have just continued to ride this cash cow into the sunset. Helldivers 2 is a smashing fucking success. It is a colossal achievement, and they have found a way to wipe their ass with it. And my heart absolutely breaks for the passionate team behind Helldivers 2. Now, initially when this stuff started happening, one of the community managers kind of made a fool of themselves. I'm not even going to bother showing the screenshot. I'm sure you all know what I'm referring to here. They put on the clown makeup for a second, but shortly after that, they all did start wiping it off when they realized the actual problem isn't the 120 seconds it takes to create a PSN account and link it to Steam. The problem is retroactively having to enforce that rule, which kicks out tons and tons of their players. And there are plenty of players who just do not want to make a PSN account because it's not a secure database. Like, I think that's also a totally fine perspective to have, because they do get hacked all the fucking time. So, like, they get hacked more than, like, a terminal in Fallout 3. So, like, I do get that perspective for people that just do not want to do it because they want to keep their data safe. Thus, they're just going to drop Helldivers because they don't want to deal with PSN. But the core of it, it's just the principle of Sony coming in here and ruining the fun. Changing something that didn't need to be changed in the first place. They could have just sat back, put their hands under their thighs, kicked their legs in their corpo high chairs, and just been like, you know, hey, we're happy Helldivers is bringing us so much money. Thanks for doing all the hard work while we just get a royalty on it. Like, it could have been so easy. It was so easy. And now they've made it really hard for themselves, and in the process, they have tanked an incredible game's reputation. But anyway, that's kind of the gist of this situation here. I don't think Sony's going to walk back these changes. I think it is too late for that since it's now been removed from Steam in so many places. I just don't see them changing their mind on it. And I think Helldivers is going to continue to kind of bleed out here as more and more people leave. And it just, I don't know, that sucks. It's such a good game, and it just didn't have to be this way, Sony. You killed it. You took it behind the barn and you put it down. Oh, it was so unnecessary. But anyway, just want to talk about it a bit. That's it. See ya. Last night, everyone's worst nightmares came true. The holiest of events was ruined live in front of tens of millions of viewers who all watched in horror. The Game Awards got trolled. All of us had to sit there, covering our eyes, cowering, trying to escape the pain from the epic super style swag prank that was just executed. It was like watching a beheading video. It was painful, traumatic even. It reminds me of that Janet Jackson nip slip during the Super Bowl in 2004, except this time I'm an adult and I'm not aroused. To desecrate the Game Awards is to, like, deface and vandalize the Mona Lisa. Have you no respect, have you no shame at all? I'm sure all of you have seen this by now. I got to witness this live and it was something pretty baffling. I'll go ahead and give a little context to what this is all about. The Game Awards is an annual show that's hosted by Jeff Keighley, and it celebrates the best games that came out that year and gives out awards, premieres, trailers for upcoming projects, and it's something that just a lot of gamers look forward to and have a good time watching. And last night, the prestigious Game of the Year award was given out to Elden Ring, which I'll give my quick take on. I fucking love Elden Ring. I think it is an absolute masterpiece, like a genuine triumph in the medium. It's the culmination of everything From Software has learned through the last 10 years of Souls games, all combined into one beautiful package. So I was pretty hyped to see it win. I love God of War Ragnarok, but I really was rooting for Elden Ring. The creators went up on stage, gave their acceptance speech, and at the end of it, a kid gave a speech of his own, and it was peculiar. Let's fucking go. Congrats. Yep. Well deserved. Well deserved.
Hey, Matan. You know, real quick, I want to thank everybody and say that I think I want to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi, Bill Clinton. Thank you, everybody.
What the fuck was that?
I don't know what that was. Was that like a... I don't... Was that like some kind of...
Did no one know that he was on the stage?
I thought he was like part of the production team.
It's been such a special night, and I can't believe
I don't know what the fuck that was.
2023 marks the 10th annual Game Awards, so we are lucky.
Pretty weird moment. This was like the gamers' equivalent to the Will Smith slap at the Academy Awards, except this time it was the spectators being slapped by cringe. But memorable cringe. This was all off the dome, completely off script, no teleprompter. In case you didn't really hear what he said, I'll say it again. He said, "I'd like to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi, Bill Clinton." It's just like an XD random statement, I think. I'm not really sure. But he was then escorted off the stage and, according to Jeff Keighley, even arrested after the show.
Now, I don't know if he actually spent time in prison, like went to county jail, like behind bars in the slammer, but if he did, he's been released since, because he's a 15-year-old kid that did this. He's been interviewed, and it seems like the motivation was a prank. Now, I'd like to show you what all went into this mastermind's scheme here, and how difficult it was to plan and execute this prank. So here's the Elden Ring team going around giving high fives on their way to the stage, and then there's the kid, coming in there like it's a secret boss encounter. Just walks down the aisle, no questions asked. He doesn't even go up at the same time as the team. He just comes from a different aisle. Then he just greets them on the way up, pats them on the back, and then stands behind them, waiting for his opportunity to strike. At least the kid let them finish their speech before he went up there to upstage them and try and steal the show. But goddamn, you have to wonder, what the fuck was security doing here? Was there even security on the premises? Like, what, were they asleep? What happened? You know, like, that's what a lot of people are focusing on now. Obviously, this event has steered the conversation away from the actual award winners and has instead put it on this in particular, because it's such a silly thing. The kid was standing behind them for so long. I just feel like as a security team, you would know who's supposed to be where, so when there's something that looks a little out of whack, you'd probably take measures to confirm whether or not that's accurate. I just assumed that kid was part of staff that was on stage to make sure everything was going off without a hiccup or something. But I clearly was wrong. So just a bit of a mistake here from the security team, because this could have been a lot worse. Like, if he didn't just go up there with the intention of saying goofy shit, like if he went up there with the intention of like stealing the award or hurting people, no one was stopping him, which is a pretty scary thought, and hopefully next time they'll take security a little more seriously. But I think another important thing to highlight from this is, with that nomination, Bill Clinton has now won more game awards than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Now, I'll quickly address a pretty dumb take that keeps floating around from people that believe they're intellectually enlightened. Nothing's real, it's all fake, and they know it. They can see right through the scam. This was all a marketing scheme. This was all just a marketing stunt to get more eyes on the Game Awards. And let's dissect that for a moment, because that's not exactly the galaxy brain conspiracy theory you think it is. This would be the worst marketing stunt for the Game Awards, because it highlights a severe lack of security and makes it look irresponsible and put together poorly. By allowing a 15-year-old to casually waltz up on stage, rub the shoulders of the Elden Ring team and stand behind them, stand next to Jeff Keighley and have nobody intervene, like, that's a problem. Like, that could have just been straight up dangerous. Again, it's lucky this wasn't some, like, unhinged lunatic up there with the intention to do harm. This highlights a problem of, like, potential safety issues. Like, that could scare sponsors away. It could scare guests away. Like, this would be a terrible marketing stunt by the Game Awards. It just makes them look bad. This would be the worst idea. Like, that's just a stupid take. This was clearly a random kid who spawned in there like an NPC and then walked down the aisle to do this prank. And the security was lax enough that it actually unfolded the exact way he wanted it to. I just don't think that theory makes any sense at all when you really think about it for more than just 2 seconds. I know everyone loves to be the person who saw through the lie. Like, no, I knew it was fake the whole time. But in this case, I think it's as simple as it gets. It was a kid who wanted to make a big prank for attention, and that's all it was. Now, it's been almost 24 hours since this happened, and there has still been no word from Bill Clinton, which I'm a little disappointed by. The man just got nominated for a Game Award, and he can't at least hop on Twitter and say something about it. Now, I do believe it's possible that Bill Clinton is being advised not to speak about this situation because it's rather turbulent, but I have no doubt that he's honored to be nominated for that Game of the Year award, and I'm sure he wants to say thank you, but he's being told to put the brakes on it. I expect in a week's time we'll have a statement from Bill Clinton, and I eagerly await his words to see what he has to say about it. You know, I've always said Bill Clinton probably is a primetime gamer. You know, he probably tears up the battlefield in Fortnite. You know, he's out there hitting the gritty while playing as Spider-Man. You know, that's the kind of man that Bill Clinton strikes me as. So he was probably watching the Game Awards, same as the rest of us, and was just giddy with excitement when he received this out of left field nomination. But yeah, anyway, I just really wanted to talk about this because this is one of those rare situations where I actually got to see this kind of thing live. I don't think I've ever had the privilege of watching one of these weird, wacky live TV moments actually happen live. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, that's about it. See ya. I'm not an overly emotional gamer. I could rub raw onions in my eyes and they wouldn't even water. The only time I've ever cried during a video game is when I played Dead to Rights on the original Xbox when I was like 12 years old, and I got to the pole dancing scene where you play as a stripper doing a pole dance routine, and I was just crying at the beauty of seeing some animated titty physics. Since then, I've never really even teared up during a game, even though I played like some very sad games like the Walking Dead game, Last of Us, fucking Nier is extremely sad, but all of these games, I really enjoy them, but they've never been enough to really sodden my eye sockets. It's always enjoyable. I love when a game isn't afraid to be emotional and try and make the player feel things, but I've just never experienced a game that was so real that it had like a profound effect on me and a lasting impression where when I think about it, I get emotional. That is until a couple days ago when I streamed a game called Before Your Eyes. Before Your Eyes is an incredibly beautiful, emotional journey of a game. Now, I will say I didn't cry during the game, however, towards the end of the game, I was on the edge of losing my composure and tearing up a little bit. Honestly, if the game had just lasted maybe like 5 minutes longer in that final scene, I probably would have had a tear or two stream down my cheeks. Kinda like in anime when the main character hits the villain and the villain's like, ugh, it's been so long since I've seen my own blood. That's how I would have been with my tears. It was so powerful. The game's only about 2 hours long, and what it's able to do in those 2 hours is remarkable. It's able to deliver such a moving experience to the player, and it's really unique. So it has a very interesting mechanic where it uses your webcam to track your eyes, and when you blink, you jump forward in time. The game is about going through a young man's life, and when you blink, you go forward. So it's the battle of keeping your eyes open to really take in those powerful moments of the character's life, because you don't want to blink and miss something. I didn't know that going into this game. I didn't know fuck all about this game before playing it. It was during a stream where I was just playing some shitty games, and then someone recommended why not trying a good one, and I did just that with Before Your Eyes. But since I was streaming, it was already using my webcam, so I couldn't use it for the game because it's already occupied by OBS, so when I try and use it in the game, it just gives me a blank screen. So I couldn't use that mechanic. Instead, I would just click when I was ready to blink in the game. And to be honest, it didn't take away from the experience. In fact, I almost prefer it that way. I feel like if I was so focused on keeping my eyes open like it was a goddamn staring contest in SpongeBob SquarePants where I'm like fucking straining, my eyes are popping out of my skull, I probably would have been too distracted to focus on everything going on in the game. Having the relaxation of being able to click when I'm ready to move on really let me take in everything that was happening. But I do understand why having to keep your eyes open and force yourself to not blink so you can really relish those moments would also be just as powerful. But it didn't take away anything just being able to click when I was ready. I really enjoyed it still. Though maybe I would have enjoyed it more with the blinking. I'm just assuming that if I was just fucking focused on keeping my eyes open, like it was that scene out of iCarly where the guy sets the world record for keeping his eyes open with no blinking, I would have been too distracted to enjoy some parts of the game where you need to keep your eyes open for quite a little while to get the most out of it. Since completing the game, I've thought about it quite a bit, and it's one of the few games I've played in my life where I think back on it and what the game was saying, the message it was delivering, and just the whole experience. Yes, there's games like Nier and Walking Dead, like I mentioned, that are sad games, but that shit's fantasy. You know, you're not gonna really have to worry about zombies or 10,000 years worth of a plague and robots and aliens and shit, you know? Like, those are sad stories, but the story Before Your Eyes is super real. It's not like, oh shit, my favorite character just got eaten alive by a zombie librarian, son of a bitch, what are the odds? It's a story that's grounded in reality, and without giving anything away about the game, it's a story that maybe a family has gone through in the real world, you know? It's just super special. And the game delivers its narrative beautifully. The voice acting is super impressive. The characters, I was sold on them. It was like you were actually in a real family listening to them talk and interact with each other. All of the supporting characters were really well written, with great voice acting, and the music was beautiful. The music alone at points was enough to make a man emotional. Like, it was enough to make a grown man shit. The music was very, very solid, and it really complemented the overall tone of the game to really get you immersed in it. It's just, I can't praise this game enough for what they've done with it. I've said this before, and I'll say it again for the people in the back with their cock out. Video games, I think, are the best medium when it comes to getting someone lost in a story. So they lend themselves super well to an emotional narrative like Before Your Eyes. A movie can show you something sad, a book can make you read something sad, but a game makes you experience it and puts you right in the middle of it, the fucking meat of the story. You are the one that is influencing what is happening around you in the game, which is entirely unique compared to the other mediums that deliver powerful narratives. Now, there's nothing wrong with books and movies, unless, of course, you're reading like 50 Shades of Grey and shit, then there's something wrong with you there. But, you know, the narratives in the books and movies are totally fine. I really enjoy those as well. But games, I think, are able to deliver it in a different way that lends itself really well to something emotional like Before Your Eyes. But one thing video games don't lend themselves well to is horror. Jesus fucking Christ, nearly every horror game that comes out is some of the worst abominable dog shit on the planet. But I'm not here to rant about how awful horror games are. Before Your Eyes is a game that I think does something extremely special and does it extremely well, but it's also not a game that I think everyone will enjoy because it's basically an interactive movie in a way. You are put in the position of the protagonist, and there are certain things that you have decisions on where you get to make choices which influence certain things of the story, but overall, you are just placed in the world, and, you know, you look around, you experience this life of the character, and that's it. There's no real gameplay elements except for the blinking, of course, and for some people that's going to be a huge turnoff, you know, because obviously a lot of people want video games where you're fucking playing, you know, and this is more of a game that's just an interactive story. And so not everyone's going to like the game, and I understand that. But if you just really want a great story and something that'll probably make a lasting impression on you, I can't recommend this game enough. Before Your Eyes is the saddest game I've played, but it's not sad in a way that makes it unfun or anything like that. It tells a very compelling narrative, and it just so happens to be a sad one. And I just really think the game is very, very well made, very well done. And like I said, it's the closest I've come to crying at a video game. Like, this shit was so good. And when I streamed it, the chat also loved it. There really weren't many people, like, not even people joking around like, oh, this game fucking sucks. I didn't see, like, any of that. It's a game where you just get lost in it, you know? Where it's just so strong in everything that it aimed to do. So I didn't want to moist meter the game because I wanted to make a whole video just talking about it because this was a really special experience for me to play this game. This was something that I thought transcended a simple review, and I wanted to really dive in and talk about it. So that's really about it. So yeah. The story of Overwatch is like a Shakespearean comedy, where it's not so much ha-ha, like laughing kind of comedy, more so just tragic. Just a completely horrific series of blunders that you can't help but point and at least giggle at. But overall, everything that's happening with Overwatch right now is entirely its own fault. I already made a whole video talking about the pathetic fumble of Overwatch 2, how they just completely slapped down the campaign and basically just annihilated it like the asteroid to the dinosaurs. It's extinct. The Overwatch 2 campaign, the single player, you know, the number one selling point of Overwatch 2, the thing that made Overwatch 2 a sequel, they just completely are getting rid of. And now you're being drip-fed little bits and pieces of what that content once was in the seasonal storyline PvE shit. So it's pathetic. A shell of what it was supposed to be, and it just keeps getting worse. Overwatch League, the esports scene for Overwatch, is imploding. Now, it's not completely dead yet, but it looks like it's on its deathbed. It looks like it's getting out its final ooh-rah here, and it's going out sad. It's actually pretty wacky. I haven't read this article on it. I wonder if this gives the full overview. Let me see. 6 years after the Overwatch League was formed, dark clouds loom on the horizon, but is OWL coming to an end? As the esports industry continues to navigate a dark period, commonly referred to as the esports winter. Jesus, that's embarrassing. Please don't call it that. This is just very natural for a highly inflated industry. Everyone knew this day was coming. They just kept kicking the can down the road. Oh, here we go. The 12 initial teams paid $20 million to enter the league in 2017, with the price of 8 expansion slots rising to as much as $35 million a year later. Actual full-blown scam. Big thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's video. Rocket Money is an all-in-one finance platform that allows you to save more and spend less. Rocket Money allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills, build a custom budget, and grow your savings all in one place. I had actually just recently learned that I was still paying a subscription to a game that I haven't touched in probably about 6 years now. And thanks to Rocket Money, I was able to notice that and cancel it easily, with no headache and no hassle whatsoever. Rocket Money can also help lower your bills by uploading a photo, tapping a button, and it'll negotiate bills for you, from internet service bills to cable and phone bills. You can also set your own budgets to help keep everything in line, so that way you know if you're getting close to exceeding them, because you'll get a notification from Rocket Money, and it helps you visualize your spend-to-earn ratio by month, quarter, and year. Overall, Rocket Money is a fantastic all-in-one finance platform with tons of tools and features that can really help you out. So if you want to get started, you can get a free trial by going to the link in the description below, or by going to rocketmoney.com/moist to start trying it for free, or you can unlock even more features with premium. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. I brought this up multiple times after starting Moist Esports, because not a lot of people, like very few people, but a couple of people asked if we'd have any interest in Overwatch, and I said even if we did really like the competitive scene a lot, super passionate about it, there is no world where we could afford the buy-in. And I said it was like 20 million, and chat was like, "You're so wrong. No way. No, it's not. You're lying." Despite big ambitions and the extravagant sums of money involved, the Overwatch League has lost steam over the years, failing to ever eclipse the viewership it achieved at launch. Multiple factors have contributed to this, from the controversial YouTube exclusivity deal to the 2020 global health and travel crisis, to the allegations of abuse and harassment at Activision Blizzard. I don't know how much the YouTube exclusivity deal mattered. Even if it wasn't and they were still broadcasting on Twitch and YouTube, well, actually they wouldn't be able to under Twitch's new rules. That'd be illegal. That's forbidden. Okay, let's just assume they never had the exclusivity though. I don't think it would change. The interest in the game overall has been declining. And the esports sector of any game is always just a pocket. It's not the whole community. So it's kind of a niche within the community itself already. I don't think it would have mattered that much. Viewership in the Overwatch League has been in free fall. The recent 2020 spring stage qualifier had a peak of 118k and an average of 55k, a huge drop off from 437k and 140k from season 1. Do they do drops? Because this is actually a lot higher than I would have expected it to be. That's actually higher than the LCS. I imagine they do drops in order to gamify it a little bit to cheese some viewers. They do? Okay, that makes sense. With no clear path to profitability and Activision Blizzard in the middle of acquisition by Microsoft, the Overwatch League could be on its last legs. It is. I hope they cover it. Yep, it's right here. As of July 20th, there's no confirmation that the Overwatch League is coming to an abrupt end. However, this possibility has become increasingly likely since Activision Blizzard released its second quarter earnings report, and the document revealed that OWL teams will vote on a new operating agreement at the end of the current season. A team that opts out of the league will be entitled to receive $6 million in termination fees. This means that if all 19 franchise teams decide to withdraw from the league, Activision Blizzard will pay a total of $114 million in termination fees. They're literally paying you to leave. They're like, please leave. We will even pay you to get the fuck out. Everyone will take it. I really think every single franchise team will. But imagine one that has so much money that they want to be petty. They could not take it and basically just hold the Overwatch League hostage, I think. Which would be fucking amazing. Just one team. The Bumblefuck Scoremasters, the last Overwatch League team holding out, refusing to take the buyout. It's like when a city's trying to buy like a dilapidated house in order to build around the area and the owner just won't sell. It's like that scene in Better Call Saul, actually. But with an esports squad. In the city case, I believe the government can forcibly take it. I don't think so. I'm not an expert, but this is very personal, actually. My university, the University of Tampa, they were doing some rapid expansion, and they were buying up a ton of houses and a ton of property around the area in order to keep building the university out over the last 10 years. There is still, to this day, last I checked, although it's been about a year now, so maybe it's different, one house in the middle of all of it. It's right before their lacrosse field, right next to their gym, and right in between their dance studio. There is one fucking house that they cannot buy because the owner will not sell. He refuses to sell. He's had it since like the fucking 30s. That shit's been there since the Stone Ages. He will not sell it. Apparently they keep offering and he just says no thank you. And he keeps his house planted in the middle of everything. In a sea of university students, there is one 2-story rough shape house that they cannot take from him, I guess, because he is not selling it. Unless he did over the last year. Like I said, it's been about a year. I hope he didn't, though. I really hope he didn't sell it. After spending between 20 to 35 million in franchise fees, plus millions more in operating costs over the years, many teams may simply opt out of the league and take the termination fee to stop the bleeding and recoup some of their losses. Independent reporter Jacob Wolf reported in May 2022, Activision was still owed approximately $400 million in unpaid franchise fees from Owl and CDL, as payments were deferred during lockdowns. This is another one you guys didn't believe me on. CDL was also a $20 million buy-in, roughly, for the esports side. You guys didn't believe me there either. It is. It is legitimately just a full-blown Activision Blizzard scam. The fucking franchising costs. In May 2023, the Sports Business Journal reported that Overwatch League had agreed to waive the outstanding franchise fees for all teams. At the time, the Owl teams still owed anywhere between $6 and $7.5 million to the league. According to Activision Blizzard's most recent financial report, the Overwatch League revenue represents less than 1% of the company's consolidated net revenue. This came only 2 months after the company stated that the Overwatch League and Call of Duty League continue to face headwinds which are negatively impacting the operations and potentially the longevity of the league under the current business model. There is no business model. The business model was hose these organizations for a massive franchise spot buy-in and nothing else. There is no business model. Esports is not a business. It's just net loss forever. Literally forever. No one's figured it out yet. No specific date has been announced as of yet. All we know is that the team owners will vote to either continue in the Overwatch League under a new operating agreement or walk away and receive a $6 million fee at the end of the current season. The 2023 Overwatch League season will come to an end with the LAN finals scheduled for September 28th through October 1st, and the event will take place in Toronto, co-hosted by the city's franchise Toronto Defiant, and feature the top 5 teams from the West, top 3 from the East. The winner will take home $1 million. I'm sure this one might actually get viewership because it'll be the last one, and then they're paying people to get the fuck out, closing down the house party, turning off the music, and then giving them a little goodie bag of $6 million on the way out and a pat on the ass. Even if Overwatch League does disappear at the end of the 2023 season, this doesn't necessarily mean that Overwatch esports will cease to exist. In a May 5th interview with Deserto, Sean Miller, the head of the Overwatch League, highlighted that the company remained committed to supporting the game's esports ecosystem. Overwatch esports are not going away anytime soon. Oh, is that right? Just like Overwatch 2's campaign's coming out any day now, the PvE is going to be amazing. We're going to have seasonal storylines when you couldn't deliver on that. All of those other amazing promises that have come true for Overwatch. Your word means a lot, Sean. The Overwatch track record has been stellar. Blemish-free. There's rumors about teams suing over false statements to investing, which is why they're offering the $6 million. They should still sue. They should still sue. This article hasn't mentioned it yet, but they apparently also laid off most of their staff, like their esports staff, for Overwatch. I read that earlier today, but maybe it comes in towards the end of the article. On July 19th, Miller underlined the same point, telling Verge that Activision Blizzard is building towards a revitalized global scene that prioritizes players and fans. As opposed to what? Prioritizes what? Like, this is esports. Players and fans. There's nothing else. I guess you could prioritize money, but you've done a terrible job with that, too. This is a nothing statement. This is legitimately a nothing statement. This means nothing. He added that the company could be taking elements from other esports leagues when designing the future of Overwatch esports. One such league is Overwatch Apex, a tournament series in South Korea organized by cable TV channel On Game between 2016 and 2017. Apex came to an end in late 2017 when Blizzard announced that Overwatch Contenders would operate in 7 regions, and it was rebranded as Contenders. What does it mean for the Call of Duty League? It's unclear at this point how the cancellation of the Overwatch League will impact its sister, but what is clear is that the recent round of layoffs at Activision Blizzard has affected workers who were involved in the CDL operations. CDL senior producer Nicholas Henshoden was among the almost 50 people who were let go earlier this week. On Twitter, he said that he and his entire content team had been laid off, and he'd been with Blizzard since 2017, working with Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch before transitioning to Call of Duty. Yeah, they don't really have an esports staff. They're slapping them. On the July 14th episode of Nade Shot Knows, 100 Thieves president and COO John Robinson presented that all CDL teams will be in a relatively healthy position by 2025. That's a good thing for the league overall, for all businesses to go through that transition of getting to break even. If you say so. How are they getting to break even by firing all of their staff and paying people to leave the league? I understand this is for Call of Duty, but this is not showing me signs of any kind of health around the corner for the company in the esports sector. Which is not a good spectator game. I'd be inclined to agree with you. It's not the best spectator game, mainly because even though I do think Overwatch 2 changed it a bit, for the longest time it was literally just shoot at meat pile, wait for alts, coordinate alts, and not a whole lot else for a while. I think 2's definitely improved on that a bit, but for a long time that was basically the esports scene. Oh yeah, and in other Overwatch news, it's coming to Steam. Yeah, I saw. Oh, actually, it's coming to Steam much sooner than I thought. August 10th. Overwatch 2's coming to Steam. To me, that sounds desperate. Very desperate. Those player count numbers must not be looking good.
Blizzard and bad decisions. A combination more iconic than peanut butter and jelly. They're no strangers to making the most bafflingly awful choices they can with their products and their community, but today's is a little special. They've decided to start cracking down on profanity in Overwatch, a game that is rated T for teen, not W for weenies. It's rated T with mild language being one of the reasons, so there's already some swearing present in the game by default. However, if a player, like a human being, engages in some naughty language, they can just get banished to the Shadow Realm for it. So collegiate Overwatch player has been banned for 30 days after saying fuck and shit in his chat logs, a decision that will end his college career as he will be unable to participate in his last tournament. It's a complete non-issue. It's not like he was spamming slurs or anything. He said some simple swear words. Club Penguin was more lenient on cussing than Overwatch, it seems. Getting banished to the Shadow Realm because you said shit in-game is incomprehensible, especially a competitive game like Overwatch. That's going to happen, and yet for some reason, the hall monitors at the Blizzard support staff are left aghast, literally shocked at people would say the word shit in-game. And they stand by this decision, by the way. It wasn't a mistake. They actually fight tooth and nail trying to explain that they don't appreciate and will not allow profanity in Overwatch. Despite having a profanity filter, no F-bombs are allowed for the player Derpy, and by extension, any other player, from what I can tell. They seem to make it a blanket statement that profanity is truly the devil, and it's not welcome in the holy household of Overwatch 2. It was upheld, templates are all you're going to get, appeals aren't for a discussion. In this particular case, profanity. F-bombs in any form are not acceptable. PJ. PJ is obviously the initials of the individual that mishandled this case, but I really think it's more applicable if it stands for profanity janitor. Like, they just have one kind of expert who's perpetually offended by any kind of foul language, and they just sick the hound on the entire Overwatch community, making sure that he goes on a banning rampage if you start saying things like fuck in the game. So anyway, they seem very upset at the idea of F-bombs in Overwatch. So, a user pointed out, why would you even have a profanity filter if using profanity is a bannable offense? Why not just blacklist those words and lead to a chat ban instantly? Why even have a profanity filter? Which is a great point. You have to turn off the profanity filter, meaning you are making the conscious decision to see some less than stellar language being tossed around, less than proper words. Why would you ban people for turning it off and then using those words? You wouldn't even have the profanity filter in the first place. This just showcases how this has truly come out of nowhere. It's a fucking stupid decision. But here, let's dive a little bit more in depth on exactly what's happening here. Overwatch 2 players are getting banned for swearing and they're not thrilled. Blizzard's customer service is in hot water after a series of exchanges about Overwatch 2's profanity rules caught the attention of the community and subsequently went viral. Apparently, profanity of any kind is considered against the hero shooter's code of conduct, and if someone reports it, seemingly regardless of context, you will get banned. The Overwatch community isn't thrilled with this new ruling, nor Blizzard's customer service representative's response. The saga started on April 12th when user Derpy82 posted a tweet asking for a response from Blizzard about their Overwatch 2 account being banned. The user attempted to use the native customer support features, figuring out why they were banned. It was only getting automated responses. It was in accordance to the terms. Yeah. I thought this was a professional player. I thought that's where it started. Blizzard's customer service representative responded to the post saying the ban was enacted due to inappropriate language in text chat, including the use of the F word and SH word, which is fuck and shit. Not exactly the most extreme profanity. He's not dropping slurs. Coming from a game where half the playable hero roster swears, and one of them even has the initials BAMF, which is badass motherfucker, on their belt, it's an odd blanket rule to throw over Overwatch 2, but nevertheless, it is the code of conduct that mentions you may not use language that could be offensive or vulgar to others. The customer service rep pointed out that it is literally in the first section of the code of conduct under communication. Response to the tweet has largely been mocked for considering profanity inherently vulgar and for the flippant response from customer service. One user said that Blizzard should be banning people who use slurs and send death threats over people using profanity, to which customer service account responded in a since deleted tweet, then report them, Joy. Wow. That was tough. That was hard. As you can imagine, this was not warmly received by community members like streamer SK. Did Blizzard hire a bunch of youth pastors to run Blizz CS account? Why are they so concerned about policing people for saying fuck and shit in Overwatch all of a sudden? There are more than enough people dropping slurs and being weird in match chat for you to keep your jobs. That's so true, though. That is a really weird thing to get hung up on. Blizzard keeps doing their best to kill Overwatch. It does seem like it. It really does seem like it. Banning the people still left in there. No swearing on my Christian Minecraft server vibes. That is the vibe here. I really wonder why. I feel like they're trying so hard to make it the safe space that they're aiming for, and they've made it the most aggressively toxic place and like the most fearful place, or even just out of context words like shit are enough to get you banned. That's like the most unsafe place imaginable for everybody. Blizzard can't stop taking L's. Not when it comes to Overwatch, it seems. They made one really good change with their esports league, dropping OWL entirely and changing that. But man, everything else, what in the fuck? I'm honestly pretty curious if this is going to extend beyond just the text chat in Overwatch. Like if PJ gets a little too much dip on their chip and goes on a power trip and starts going through like Overwatch 2 streamers on Twitch, waiting to see if they start saying bad words and then banning them in-game for bringing profanity into the Overwatch community. I feel like it's not that far-fetched. They clearly don't want swearing in their Overwatch 2 environment. So, will he start doing that to, like, sponsored streamers in the future who are representing Overwatch but then saying things like fuck and shit, the forbidden words? I think probably unlikely, but it's not impossible to imagine that world, because we're already living in the loony dimension here if you're getting banned for saying things like shit in a video game. It honestly shows just how little the Overwatch team understands its community. I don't know who they think the audience is that's playing Overwatch 2. They must really think that it's bubble blowing double babies or something in Overwatch that can't handle words like shit. I can promise you, no players in your game are being offended and left with tears in their eyes if someone says fuck in a text chat Overwatch. Like, it's not happening. It's not happening at all. And yet, people are getting banned for it. It's so stupid. I don't think they recognize just how unbelievably ridiculous that concept is. Like, actual kindergarten classrooms are more understanding of bad words than Overwatch. But anyway, I want to move on to another pseudo Blizzard L here, because this one is also just so fucking stupid that came out of nowhere. The former head of Blizzard piped up and made a stupid statement saying that you should have the option of tipping developers once you finish a really good game. So you'd be paying $70 for the title and then tip on top of that once you finish, which is an outlandish idea from so many different angles. But the most obvious one is that money that you would tip in this fantasy land would not ever see the pockets of a developer that worked on it. It would just go right to the publisher and nobody else. It is so dumb. Yeah, I saw the Blizzard dev say that tipping developers isn't a bad idea. I have not seen that, Aston, but I can look it up. The former boss of Blizzard Entertainment has suggested a post-purchase tip feature that would let players give $10 to $20 extra to the developers of special games. That's definitely not going to the developers, that's just going to the studio. The developers won't see a dime of that shit. Former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra tweeted that he's often felt that upon completion of a particularly enjoyable single-player game, he'd like to give more money to the developers because it was worth more than my initial $70 and they didn't try to nickel and dime me every second. I don't know what world you're living in. I don't know what he's playing. Most of the $70 games that are coming out are really kind of half-baked and focused on trying to nickel and dime you. Games Ybarra mentioned that had sparked such a feeling include Guerrilla's Horizon Zero Dawn, Sony Santa Monica's God of War, Rockstar's Red Dead Redemption 2, Larian's Baldur's Gate 3, and some From Software's Elden Ring. I know $70 is already a lot, but it's an option at the end of the game I wish I had at times. Some games are that special. It's fair to say that the reaction to the suggestion is mixed, with many people saying they're already forking out plenty of money for video games. Others have pointed out that some game platforms such as itch.io already allow tips, and that small indie developers often use established platforms for donations. Many have also pointed out that any extra revenue generated through these tips would invariably end up in the pockets of the publishers as opposed to the developers themselves, at least for the majority of AAA releases, and if such a system were to hit the likes of Steam, the PlayStation Store, or Xbox Store, would Valve, Sony, and Microsoft all expect a cut? Yeah, of course they would. 100%. It's a stupid idea. On the other hand, others have backed the idea. Paul Kilduff Taylor, what a name, Kilduff Taylor, of Mode 7 Games tweeted, "People have discovered various ingenious ways to be angry about this, but adding a pay more if you want option to major stores would straightforwardly be excellent for devs. It works very well on Bandcamp." Yeah, it works well on Bandcamp because it's people independently releasing those projects. They actually see the money, the pay what you want model. The devs aren't going to see this shit. Like it mentions up here, the platforms are going to want to cut, and the publishers are mainly going to get that tip. Doesn't help the devs at all. No, this isn't like a real thing they're implementing or anything. This is just the former Blizzard head saying that it's a cool idea. Ybarra ended his post acknowledging that the tipping idea won't be for everyone. I know most will dislike this idea, he said. By the way, I realize we are tired of tipping and everything else, but I view this different from a pressure to tip type scenario many face and give feedback on. I don't know why you'd view it differently. It's kind of just the same thing. They've added tipping to self-checkout machines, man. Tipping your landlord. Ugh. That was just a meme. That wasn't like a real movement they were trying to make. How else do we keep the robots in check? Yeah, I tipped the Walmart self-checkout machine as an investment into my safety in the future. He'll remember that. Tipping in general is just crazy to me. As a European, nobody's job should depend on it. I know, man. It's tragic. But it's not like there's nothing to really do to fight back against it. If you refuse to tip, the only person you're hurting is like the normal person that's working the job. So I always tip a lot. But I really do hate that they're not paid a decent wage for the work they do and instead have to rely on people to tip. It's fucking stupid. It is so stupid. RNG income. True. Yeah, RNG income. Some owners of places take the tips behind closed doors. The gaming space is in a pretty weird spot right now with so many bad decisions happening so quickly, it's just leading to this avalanche of garbage. Like, I don't think Mr. Magoo could make as many horrible decisions as these video game executives have been recently. We just saw it with Escape from Tarkov doing their best Voltorb impression and using self-destruct on their entire company and game, by being overcome with greed and leading to the absolute destruction of their product that they had built up over the course of years and ruined the trust of the community. And then immediately after that, Sony decided to do something even stupider by activating the Orb of Confusion and trying to find a way to ruin one of the most successful games in recent memory with Helldivers 2. They went full-blown like Brain Offenheimer, now I am become death, destroyer of games, and made a greedy decision that nearly ruined Helldivers, and then they had to break out the ukulele for their public apology press tour here. It's like they got offended that someone did a worse job than them, so they found a way of one-upping it. And then from out of nowhere, sneaking in from the shadows, we have the dumb assholes at Xbox going, "Wait a minute, guys, check this one out." And then made a clown of themselves, like fucking fools, publicly eating shit, making terrible decisions. It's like a Royal Rumble, where more and more AAA industry companies keep coming forward and make decisions that beg the community to throw pies and tomatoes at their faces. Yesterday they announced there'd be some closures coming to some studios under the Microsoft umbrella. Arcane Austin, Alpha Dog Studios, Tango Gameworks, and Roundhouse Games were banished to the Shadow Realm. And that means that Xbox has now closed more studios than it's released games this year. That is an embarrassing statistic. They are more likely to close a studio than they are to release a game at the moment. That's fucking shocking. Now, I really want to get into the weeds of this and roll around in the mud, but before I do that, I do want to thank today's sponsor, Current. Big thanks to Current for sponsoring this video. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with Current. We worked with them a lot in the past, and they have a lot of great products. The new one is an absolute game changer. It's called Paycheck Advance. When you start banking with Current, you can access up to $500 before payday once you qualify. Paycheck Advance is free, or you can instantly withdraw cash for a small fee. You can withdraw as many times as you need without additional fees, and there's no lines of credit and no credit checks. So stop waiting for payday. You can go ahead and get Current and get Paycheck Advance right now. So go to current.com/Penguinz0, or you can download the app and set up a direct deposit and use my code Penguinz0 and get $50. Terms apply. You can also click the link in the description below to get started so you can try Current and build your money future. Current.com/Penguinz0. Thanks again, Current, for sponsoring. By far, the biggest criticism that Xbox has faced over the last decade is their lack of games. In the Xbox 360 era, they were kings, pumping out some bangers, absolute timeless masterpieces. And these puppies were popping fresh out of the oven days or months after each other, which is unheard of in the current landscape of things. Crobcat has a great video on the golden era of the 360, and the iconic games that were coming out quickly. It was like they're playing on a fucking Minecraft private server where you couldn't stop hitting diamonds. Like, every block was diamonds back then. And now look at it. It's such a fall off. The Xbox exclusive release schedule looks more empty than that room Squidward went to be all alone. It's sad to see it in that state. They just don't make many games anymore. They are by far the worst out of all the major players. And it's not even really close. They do still have some exclusives that come out, but it's very seldom. So, anyway, the fact that they're closing studios is a big alarming red flag for a lot of gamers because they're just struggling, clearly struggling. Not just them, the whole industry is, but Xbox in particular just cannot get it together. When they do, by some miraculous divine intervention, release a game, an exclusive, they haven't been that good, like Redfall. Redfall became the joke of gaming last year. And speaking of Redfall, that gets to one of the studio closures, which is Arcane Austin, the studio responsible for that blemish, that absolute festering wound on the AAA gaming space. They shut down that studio because that game flopped so hard for them. They didn't even give them a second chance. And keep in mind, Arcane Austin didn't want to make the Redfall that we received. That was put upon them from everything I've seen. All of the evidence points to them working on that game because they were forced to. And that brings us to what has by far been the scariest studio closure, which was the shutdown of Tango Gameworks, which is the studio behind Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush is by far Xbox most positively reviewed game in years. It was a darling. It was a game that everyone appreciated, everyone had nothing but praise for, and absolutely one of those games where people were like, Xbox might be back. Finally, a good game. Finally, an exclusive that's not dog shit. And then they shut down the studio that made it. It was reviewed tremendously. Everyone loved it. And they still shut the studio down. They took it behind the barn and put a bullet in its head. There's a quote in that article that says we couldn't be happier with it. Like, they were pleased with its performance. But I guess it just wasn't enough. And a lot of people are blaming Game Pass. Game Pass is a really good deal for gamers. I've said that since the very beginning, since the genesis of Game Pass. That shit slaps. It is crazy value. That'd make your fucking head spin. And I always said, I don't know how it's profitable for them. And I don't think it is. I actually am starting to get behind those tinfoil condom conspiracy theories that Game Pass is actually ruining some of the game studios because their games are getting put on Game Pass, thus people aren't paying full price for them or anything, and it's making their sales numbers look weaker because why would you pay full price for Hi-Fi Rush if you could just sign up for Game Pass and have access to it for free, basically, right? Like, it's one of those things that doesn't reflect great on the sales numbers of the games that are on there. And I really think that this is great proof of that. A lot of people played Hi-Fi Rush. This was a game that was being streamed out the wazoo from what I recall. Everyone was talking about it for a while. It was the hot button topic of conversations that Xbox has finally delivered something great and for the first time in a long time. And now fast forward to today where they're shutting the studio down. So the performance, like financially, must not have been that great, which is surprising. So it's either because of Game Pass or because of how inflated the costs are for producing games in the modern age. This shit is gluttonous when it comes to eating money. This is something I've talked about over the last couple of years, but games are so expensive to make now, it takes years in certain cases to deliver a game. That is a long time to be paying for a game to be produced, and that's not even counting in the marketing budget and the amount of spending that goes into that. So it's not enough for a game to just be really good and sell pretty well. It needs to sell extraordinarily well or have some built-in lifeline monetization where you can continue to make money off it long term, so it's not relying on just the initial sale of the game. You bake in these monetization schemes that can continue to tap into people's piggy banks and milk their titties dry for their allowance as you give them these cosmetics and loot boxes or whatever you're putting in there, so that way you can try and make that money down the line and turn a profit. Because it is so hard to break even on games right now, you'd need to move millions in a lot of cases. To have a profitable game in the AAA space, you have to outsell the Bible, basically. It's not easy. And it's leading to so many problems in the industry, which is why they seem so desperate to find new greedy ways of monetizing it. It is in a terrible place, which is why indie games are flourishing. Indie games are picking up the slack and they're crushing it. Indie games right now are the best games on the market. Now, this Bloomberg article has more information here. This is from Jason Schreier and Dana Bass, who worked together to dig into the details of what's going on there. Executives felt stretched too thin trying to manage every team. The studios had just released games and needed to staff up to be able to start work on new ones, and more cuts will occur at an individual level with staff offered severance packages within Bethesda proper. As far as studio shutdowns go, Booty said that the company's studios had been spread too thin like peanut butter on bread, and that leaders across the division had felt understaffed. They decided to close these studios to free up resources elsewhere. Now, Booty is referring to Matt Booty, who's been in charge of Xbox Game Studio for a while, and his name is so fitting for this situation because this is just ass. This Booty can't stop shitting the bed at Xbox right now. And Mr. Booty goes on to add that Redfall's failures were not the reason as to why the studio was shut down, which is a whole load of horseradish. That is just a lie. He is just telling a fib right there. It was intimated with Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, and Alpha Dog all just having put games out that it was tied to timing more than results. Tango had just put out the critically acclaimed Hi-Fi Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo titles, Arcane Austin put out the aforementioned Redfall, and Alpha Dog had released Mighty Doom. Roundhouse had been working as a support studio and will be absorbed into ZeniMax Online to work on their projects instead of being closed. Which is still basically closing that studio in my opinion, but I guess not technically. But anyway, these closures come less than 6 months after Microsoft laid off 1,900 Activision, Blizzard, and Xbox employees, and just months after Sony closed some of its own game studios and laid off around 900 employees. So these layoffs are just happening at an alarming rate with all this turmoil in the gaming space. And then I saw this headline that popped up today from The Verge. Microsoft says it needs games like Hi-Fi Rush the day after killing its studio. So the goofball Matt Booty came forward wearing the dunce cap and said in a town hall discussion, "We need smaller games that give us prestige and awards." Brother, you are dancing on the grave of one of the studios that delivered just that. Hi-Fi Rush was a small game. It was critically acclaimed. Everyone loved it. It won awards. Like, it was exactly what you were describing. You just buried them 24 hours ago, and now in your post-mortem, post-nut clarity, you're scratching your chin. We need some smaller, less expensive titles that can be extremely good and really punch above their weight class, winning awards, being very prestigious. Let's try that approach. That's something we haven't tried before. I could be a pioneer, a trailblazer with this approach. Like, it's a no fucking wonder Xbox is so disheveled and all over the place and can't get their act together. Matt Booty is suffering from amnesia. Like, how in the world could you make this statement after you just shut down the studio that did exactly what you described? AAA gaming is such a mess. It is a disaster, and I think it's only going to continue to get worse. There are rumors, of course, of more layoffs coming at Microsoft and more studio closures perhaps down the road. I wouldn't be surprised. I also do think we're going to see more on Sony's side with them having more layoffs and all that, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It's just too unsustainable at the moment with these big budget AAA studios right now and the publishers behind them making awful decisions for them down the road. So, yeah, just wanted to talk about this a little bit. That's it. See ya.